Hi,
Hi,
Justyna.
and Kuba.
We are from Poland and we travel around Europe searching places connected with roots of European culture, roots of searching European heritage. Now we are in Greece, in Delphi, at the foot of Mount Parnassus. Delphi was the Pan-Hellenic sanctuary, ancient Pan-Hellenic sanctuary, where Oracle of Apollo was. It was one of the most famous and the most reliable oracle in ancient times. Now we are near the entrance to sanctuary, in the beginning of sacred way. On our right, behind behind columns are stores when pilgrims, when visitors to sanctuary in ancient times could buy memories, souvenirs, votives. Look at the beautiful walls of the stores. Along the sacred way, everywhere were votive monuments. Now here are only inscriptions from ancient times. Monuments were eaten by time. So in ancient time here were inscription, monuments, statues, votive monuments, or of course votive inscriptions. This graceful cat with a beautiful predatory step walks along the so-called Cyclopean wall. This is a construction known from many archaeological sites located in seismic areas. Polygonal masonry, Cyclopean wall, is a construction of irregular stone blocks fitted together. The stones are not arranged pressure fit. Small gaps between them are filled with sand or gravel. Such a construction is very resistant to earthquakes while being cohesive with a bit of the necessary flexibility. The quality of such construction in seismic areas is evidenced by the fact that this wall has been standing since antiquity. The sanctuary of Apollo here dates back to the 11th century BC, but the site itself had connections with the sacred much earlier. Archaeologists have found Mycenaean figurines dating back to the 14th century BC at the foot of Parnassus and on the site of the later temple of Athena Pranaia. Here are clay figurines on tripod seats. In the Archaeological Museum of Delphi, they are described as symbols of divine power and the precursors of oracular tripod. There is reason to believe that between the 14th and 11th centuries BC, in the area and at the site of the later Delphic oracle, the main deity was Mother Earth, Ge. Her oracle was guarded and perhaps also prophesied by a female monster, the dragon, the serpent Python. According to mythical tradition, the cult of Apollo in 11th century BC was established at Delphi when the god installed himself there, first killed the python. Behind us is contemporary copy of the Navel of the World. Because so-called Navel of the World, because in Delphi was the Navel of the World. Delphi in ancient times was the they thought, the Greeks thought that it was the center of the world. So, contemporary copy of Naval of the World. It's not very beautiful, but very good copy from ancient time is in archaeological museum near this site. In front of us is ancient copy of Naval of the World. Why copy? Because in the sanctuary were some copies and original was in the temple of Apollo.
In front of Pythia.
In front of Pythia.
It's interesting how that sanctuary was established. According to myth, Zeus realized two golden eagles from two opposite ends of
The world?
And in place where the eagles met, throw down a big stone. That stone signaled the place where the Omphalos, center of the world, was. It's a legend, but
It's a myth?
It's a myth. But what was the reason why the Delphi was established here?
And
Maybe a real cosmic stone, meteorite.
the Omphalos was covered with a woolen net with attached bands of wool called the agranon. According to traveler Pausanias from the 2nd century AD, stone gorgon heads were attached to the agranon and two golden eagles were placed on the top. An ancient copy of the original from the Temple of Apollo in the museum is in the same hall as the tall column. Researchers have discovered that in antiquity the Omphalos was placed on its top, and the whole thing stood in the place of this modern copy behind us, near the treasury of Athenians. The column is crowned by three female figures suspended in the air. Women are identified with the Tyads or Bacchae, in other words. The reconstruction shows above them the cauldron from the tripod on which the Omphalos is placed. It seems to have a deep symbolic meaning. The Omphalos is not only the center of the world, but also a connection with an external, life-giving force. The oracle is Apollonian, but the myths and the women on the column also point to Dionysus and earlier chthonic forces. So the connection of heaven with earth and further the chthonic underground sphere. Behind us, near the sacred way, is the treasury of Athenian. It was built in the gratitude for the victory over the Persians.
Near Marathon.
Yes, and to gratitude to say thank you for the democracy. Athenian democracy. Of course, it was full of treasures taken from Persian. On this occasion, it is worth mentioning that some of the inscriptions placed on the Athenian treasury contain the oldest musical notation, hymns to Apollo. Between the verses written in the Ionic alphabet, notes have been inscribed for both the choral and instrumental scores. Here, in this place, was the sacred place many centuries older than the Temple of Apollo. It was connected with Ge, earth, and here was oracle. The prophecies of Ge prophets the fallen of Troy, for example. It is due to myth.
And of course, like many such places, it was established near the
sacred spring.
Spring.
A little further on, behind the so-called Rock of the Sibyl, stood a Sphinx, which looks impressive in the museum and in ancient times looked, I think, even more impressive here. The basement of the Sphinx the Sibyl's Rock, and in the distance, the treasury of the Athenians. We continue along the sacred way just as pilgrims did in antiquity, passing votive inscriptions and remains of votive monuments along the way. And finally, the most important part of the sanctuary, the Temple of Apollo, a place that inspires to this day, just like the maxims that were described on the temple's porch in antiquity. Know thyself and nothing in excess. Ancient writers also talk about enigmatic Delphic symbol E, also placed on the temple.
A temple of Apollo behind us.
Yes. It is perhaps the most important temple in ancient Greece.
Temple, not only temple, sanctuary.
And the oracle.
And oracle. Famous for 1,500 years in all Ellada. And another countries. Okay. It's temple connected to a sky god Apollo. A god of music, of art,
of harmony. Everything light.
Light, yes.
Everything which is light.
But not only. In the temple, in the place, a sky god
was connected.
Connected with a chthonic power. At first, representing that Python.
Killed by Apollo. Chthonic
female god creature. Okay.
And then
which was at first in that place.
Yes.
And with Dionysus, everything, everywhere. Dionysus. Dionysus is everywhere in Greek.
Here he was Dionysus chthonic power.
Yes.
Here Dionysus was in his aspect, in such aspect. Dionysus was killed by Titans, and his tomb, his grave was here. Apollo took the bones of Dionysus.
Rest of Dionysus.
Yes. And the tomb of Dionysus was in the stairs near the tripod. Near the tripod on which sat Pythia.
And listen, Pythia is connected with Python. Why?
Her name.
We don't know. Python was a
female creature. And what is more, here was sacred chasm.
Okay.
Here is crossing of tectonic faults under the temple of Apollo.
Maybe a few words about technical aspect of cult. At first, followers going to the temple have to purify in sacred spring. Next, they have to sacrifice goat.
A goat should behave in a special way, and if the goat behaves in the special way, the sacrifice and the oracle could have place. If not, the follower should go home.
We can imagine that a goat was a kind of ticket to the oracle. Payment, ticket. If everything was right way, Pythia.
And Apollo wanted to say...
Yes, wanted to...
say something.
To meet followers. I give her some advice. Pythia, go up with tripod in that most central part of temple in Aditon. Some kind of temenos.
The most sacred.
By steps of Dionysus' tomb, go up on tripod.
Spend the whole night on the tripod, on the cauldron of the tripod.
And next, in front of priests, not followers, take a deep breath of tectonic vapors, we said it was on connection tectonic fault. And it's popular interpretation of the temple.
In such way, described it ancient people.
Yes. And we after them. And felt in some kind of delirium.
Some kind of trance, contact of the source of oracle. Maybe
yes.
Apollo, maybe also Dionysus, Python, some transcendent forces.
And starts to articulate.
Powers inside Pythia started say something.
In articulated way, in cries, in something like that.
And priests interpreted Pythia's trance cries. In the archaeological museum in Delphi, you can see the tripod and the bronze cauldron on which the prophetic Pythia sat. This type of tripod predominated in the 7th century BC. The rim of such tripods were often decorated with attached heads of griffins and sirens, because during the very long time of the oracle's operation, the cauldrons and tripods changed. In a display case next to the tripod, these fantastic griffins and sirens are exhibited. It is a great pleasure to look at them and reflect on ancient history and the human condition. And interesting thing, Karl Kerelny, the famous Hungarian mythographer, said that in the Adyton were traces of tripod and of omphalos. And it could be this stone with traces of tripod, and here could have been omphalos. Because omphalos was in the Adyton, in front of tripod, in front of Pythia. And in some version of myth, the chthonic creature python was buried under the omphalos. Maybe the vapors from of the earth were the breath of python. So maybe it is the trace of real tripod, and here maybe it was real omphalos. But this block, this stone, was inside the temple.
It was a part of pavement.
Yes, it was the part of pavement. Behind the temple of Apollo, the road continues uphill towards the theater. After all, no sacred place in ancient Greece could be without a theater. Along the way, you can admire the temple of Apollo from above.
And last but not least, Apollo temple is in beautiful place, beautiful landscape. And place is famous for older sanctuary, Corycian Cave. Corycian Cave, something like here, and a home of Apollo.
A home of his muses.
Muses, okay. About here.
Once more, please.
Okay, here.
This light peak.
Yes, this light peak.
Maybe it's this one, the top of Parnassus.
But mountain after.
Because
and sea.
The sanctuary of Apollo, is on the south slopes of Parnassus. It's in the foot of Parnassus.
Okay, but its direction, main direction, is nearly to Parnassus.
Okay, yes.
You see?
Yes.
Okay.
And here is the theater. The theater of Dionysus.
Because Dionysus is a second resident of that sacred place.
Sacred place. But that's not all, because the road continues uphill towards the stadium. The last place in our visit to sanctuary in Delphi, the stadium, very important place because in the ancient times here were Pythian Games, the second in their importance after Olympic Games, and also every 4 years Pythian Games, very important, sacred game.
Okay.
So.
It's time to say goodbye.
And it's time to say goodbye to Delphi, and we are going to Parnassus.
Okay.
In front of us, Corycian Cave. Corycian Cave connected also with Oracle, because here is very, very old Oracle from Neolithic times. Archaeological discoveries are from some 1,000 years ago. Let's look what is inside. Beautiful view, look. And this spiral may be labyrinth inside. Oracle in Delphi works, and also Oracle inside Pan's Corycian Cave works too. Here was Oracle for local people, because Pan was god of the wild, of shepherds, of the flocks, of their flocks. This Corycian Cave also was connected with nymphs, three nymphs. Nymphs were earlier than god Pan, and this cave also is connected with Deus, with Deus. Let's go through this spiral, through this labyrinth. What a beautiful it's absolutely contemporary. Fantastic, beautiful offerings. Some fruits, jewelry, beautiful stone, ring, beautiful fragrant garden, because here are wild herbs. I think it will be good if I will make some offering, maybe. some nuts from Poland, because we are from Poland. For the gods of this place. The gods of this place are nymphs, Zeus, god Pan. God Pan, local god. God Pan was half man, half goat. He has hindquarters of a goat, legs and feet of a goat. No, Zeus. Zeus was connected with this place by mythological story in which Mother Earth and Tartarus were parents of Typhon, monster Typhon. Zeus fought with Typhon, and Typhon was very strong, very powerful, and he closed Zeus in this cave. But Athena helped Zeus, and God was free, but Zeus closed Typhon in this cave. But maybe Typhon became better, maybe something else happened. But in the times when oracle in Delphi works, oracle here connected with Pan and nymphs also worked. Another place, very interesting, big stalagmite with offerings. Today's offerings, some stripes of, like on original omphalos in Aditon in Delphi. I don't know what is the meaning of some stripes. Also jewelry with natural stones, also natural stones, not only also natural stones. And here in the cave, some little cave with offerings, with beautiful fragrance from wild herbs. And what is something in this dark place? Mother of God.
Christian Mother of God.
Christian Mother of God. Virgin Mary, with a lot of offerings. Such a...
Greeky.
Yes. Olives, herbs, and I think it's rosary.
Uh-huh.
Look. Catholic rosary string. So, nymphs, Pan, Zeus, Virgin Mary are gods of this place. Beautiful. Interesting and beautiful. A really sacred place. Sun, maybe Apollo also. Nymphs are connected with Apollo. Let's look what is further, because big sacred hall, big sacred cave, and here are some corridors in front of us. Space connected with the cult is here. It's at the big hall. Further is the cave. The cave, sacred cave, but without visible.
A dark side with no things.
With no signs of the cult.
Of cult.
Let's look. Beautiful. Beautiful. Somewhere on one of the walls of this cave, archaeologists found inscriptions connected with Pan, with the god Pan. Beautiful, beautiful. And what have you? Absolutely impressive.
It's a sacred part of cave.
Yeah. It's somewhere in this sacred space where the inscriptions for the god Pan. Additionally, 24,000 bones were discovered in this cave, which were used in ancient games and divination. They looked similar to these from the Archaeological Museum of Pella. As you can see, they were animal bones, most often sheep or goats. Some of those found in the Corycian Cave had the names of gods on them. Pan flute. The name is after the god Pan. In Greek,
Syrax.
because it was
Developed by Pan himself and used to making a lot of noise in mountains and frighten
nymphs.
to fright. It's so panic.
After god Pan.
Fear of god Pan.
So, let's go outside.
Be careful.
Let's go outside and let's go to Parnas, to Parnassus.
To meet another heroes of mythology, Greek mythology.
Yes.
Mythology, maybe culture, history.
Culture, history and mythology. Another place, Corycian Cave, Delphi, Parnas. Everything is connected. Everything is connected from very old times. Really prehistoric times.
And what is very impressive for me, for example, is a longitude of time in which that places were used like a sacred places to celebrate cults, celebrate gods.
Yeah.
To give identity for Hellenic people, or Hellenes. It's not interesting.
Okay. Look, we didn't tell. Some offerings outside. Offerings from the local herbs. Both sides, the entrance. Maybe the sound of the wind also. It is the sound of Pan's flute. Let's go to Parnassus. Near the peak of Parnassus, but here also is Parnassus. In our small car, we want to get as close as possible to the highest peak in the Parnassus Massif. It rises 2,457 meters, 8,061 feet above sea level. We're following the route simply indicated by Google Maps. It's beautiful here and a bit wild, even in late spring. It's interesting that, according to ancient authors, the Bacchi, Taiadis, Maenades went to Parnassus in winter. They were normal women, except that They were worshippers of the god Dionysus. This is not based on myth, but on a description of life in antiquity. They walked here in winter, passing the sanctuary at Delphi along the way. Probably then, as now, there was snow on Parnassus and cold winds were blowing. However, unlike today, there was no such convenient road here. Ancient authors wrote that they wandered upwards, dancing their mad dance, perhaps in some kind of trance. They journeyed to these mountains to wake up Dionysus. Let's sit down for a moment in a quieter place, a little lower, to finish the story. We are sitting on the slopes of Parnassus. Parnassus is known that it is seat of Apollo, the home of Apollo's muses, but in winter it is connected. It is the home of Dionysus, and from November in winter the Bacchantes walked to Parnassus, and during this time the priests at the sanctuary at Delphi helped them with special rites, during which they sang paeans and dithyrambs. Paeans, calm songs full of harmony, dithyrambs, wild and impetuous songs. Moreover, Dionysus was called Dithyrambos, but he was also entitled to paeans. Remember the votive offerings in the Corycian Cave? Besides the Virgin Mary, I don't know what gods are offered there today. Interestingly, sometime in the mid-20th century, Karl Kereny, a Hungarian mythographer, wrote that while hiking on Mount Parnassus, local people told him that in winter they could sometimes hear the sounds of Bacchantes' instruments. Strong winds carried them far away. They also mentioned their panic fear when the powers evoked by these women bent the spruce trees to the ground. It was what it was. Parnassus has a unique atmosphere, and when we spend time here, old myths come to mind. So, this is all for today. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to not miss other videos, and till the next time. Bye bye.
Bye.